Yes, you guessed it right. This is Robert Kabshenga.
And I'm Fiona Kemijisha.
And this is the New Breed podcast,
bringing you the next generation of leaders unfiltered.
So thank you, folks, for joining us. This is the inaugural podcast where we bring you the leaders of tomorrow, as they used to describe us when we were much younger. But the good thing is they are here today. And we want to understand who they are today so that we can know what our tomorrow will look like. So, Fiona, first of all, thank you for agreeing to do this with me. And are you excited about this?
Thank you for agreeing to do this with me. Yeah, I am excited. I'm looking forward to the conversations we are going to have in the next 2 months or so. Yeah.
So Fiona, I need to ask you a question. Where do people find us? You're the one who knows this stuff better than me.
I can own that. So people, welcome once again to the New Breed podcast. You can find us primarily on YouTube on the New Breed podcast, UG. And then we have some secondary platforms, which is Robert's X, and then my Instagram, which is Fiona Kemi, and also on Robert's X. On Robert's TikTok. So
yes, I have a TikTok, by the way. People keep wondering. Yeah, I do. And I'm on now live, as you can imagine. Yes.
Yes, so you can actually watch us on any of those platforms. We are streaming live on each and every one of those platforms. Instagram, then TikTok, and X via Robert's accounts. So if you feel for some reason you don't want to watch us on YouTube, you can watch us on any of those other platforms as well. But please remember to subscribe so that we can keep the thing going.
And just so you guys know, Fiona, let me let the folks know that we've been posting all week about the first panel of our young leaders whose image is going to be completely unfiltered. So this evening, we will have talking to you, Yvonne Mpambara, who wants to be president of Uganda. Marion Kirabo, who has much fewer ambition, or much less ambition. She just wants to be a councillor at KCCA. And Andrew Oulanyah, who will be joining us shortly, who's just trying to be an MP for a constituency in northern Uganda. Fiona, over to you.
Yes, so our guests have been quite deeply introduced to you on our platforms. If you've seen the posters, we took the liberty to have their bios on there so you can learn a little bit more about them there, so you know at least some of who they are already. We didn't want to jump in with hello, hi, and all of these explanations. You already have a profile of them, so we are going to jump right into the conversation. Now, the first question I'd like to ask, and perhaps I'll direct it to Yvonne. She was the first to join. So let me direct it to Yvonne. So Yvonne, yes, when you picture Uganda like 10 years from now, how would you like the people of that time to how would you like them to look back on on your generation of leaders? What is one thing you'd like to say, this is what that generation of leaders brought out, this is what they did, this is the kind of impact?
Thank you so much, Fiona. First of all, I would love to highlight that there are certain aspects of governance and certain aspects of leadership that our generation is trying to take the mantle for, to carry it from the generations that have been here before us, but also move it toward much more meaningful leadership in terms of what it would look like for the generations that are coming, to be able to ably show that we are just as capable as the generations before us in terms of what leadership can be, in terms of what governance can be, and in terms of transforming this country. Whether we are offering alternative visions, or for maybe some friends of ours, like the people from NRM, are maintaining the same vision for this country. But I would love to mention that it's very important to show that the generations that are emerging now, of leaders especially, have put up a very fierce fight in terms of what our country has become, in terms of retrogressing when it comes to certain aspects. When we look at the economy, when we look at certain sectors like health sector, the education sector, when we look at how citizens participate, we feel that there's so much that is lacking that we are willing to pull up and show the generations before us that are in leadership now, or the ones that are in leadership now, that there are certain aspects that are not working, that we want to take the mantle on for, and make sure that this country is working for each and every single citizen, instead of opportunities going only to particular few people, to particular individuals, whether it's elites, whether it's the ruling government. We want to make sure that that is not the kind of leadership, that is not the kind of mantle that we carry forward with the new breed of leaders. We have to make sure that Uganda works for each and every single Ugandan.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you are saying you want people to look back on your generation of leaders and say they carried the mantle and enabled a system that isn't limited in opportunity to only a few, but to everyone.
Yes, okay. Please, and every Ugandan.
Okay, I think that's a message most of us at least can get behind. Let me ask Marion the same question. Marion, when you think about 10 years from now, what would you like people to be saying about your generation of leaders?
I think for me, the most thing would be that we took a chance. We believed that we deserved more, that as Ugandans, there was more to life than struggling to get by day and day, that there was more to life than unemployment and poverty, that we can actually thrive to make sure that we have a Uganda that works for us, a Uganda that we can be comfortable living in, that we do not have to look for opportunities overseas, a Uganda in which we are comfortable enough to raise our children in and not have to be at a constant worry of, oh, okay, if I bring a child into this world, how am I going to... I already cannot support myself. How am I going to support another human being? How will I build a family? And how will I put this kid through school? So a Uganda where I can thrive and not just survive. And the fact that our generation rose up to fight for such a Uganda where the resources of the country are used to sustain all of us as a population, not a certain cabal of few people, that really a country in which I can have hope in, and that I have fought for such a future. So I am hoping that I become part of a generation that can fight for that, and that can see it at least fighting, but also see it to fruition in at least the next 20 years of my lifetime, that I can see it evolve and I can sit down and be comfortable that I fought for this future and now I get to enjoy it. So yeah, to some people it might seem aspirational, but I mean, we human beings are dreamers, and that's how we have achieved most of what we have now. So I'm hoping that we can dream, and we can not only dream, but also take steps to make sure that that happens. Yeah.
Yuna, I honestly have the question that's burning me, because both Yvonne and Marion have used exactly the same phrase. And I find that very interesting. Both of them have talked about Uganda that works for everyone. So, Marion, starting with you, and the question is exactly the same. Starting with you, what is the Uganda that works? How should a Uganda work, first of all, for anybody? First, leave everybody. How should the Uganda work for anybody? What are the basics where anybody living in Uganda feels, yes, this country is working for me? What does that mean for you? How do you see that?
One, for starters, I'm looking at a Uganda where all of us are equal under the law. Mm-hmm. And not because, let me say, a Ham Chigundu has a lot of money and mm-hmm. therefore can just buy an Achimbo channel and affect thousands of traders in Chikuvo, and mm-hmm. he can get away with it even without using the proper procedures. Mm-hmm. that even when his actions are so degrading because it's really degrading and inhuman treatment, for me to set up my shop and to buy my goods probably on borrowed money, and I'm still paying taxes, I'm still paying loans, I'm still paying rent. And you come because you want to build an arcade on a channel, and you have the money to do so, or perhaps the political power to do so, and you have bought out God knows who else, every authority that is supposed to stop you to do it, and you do it, and you affect me. And when I try to stand up for my rights, you send thugs to beat me up. And even when I seek redress to all the authorities that be, no one listens to me because I am an inconsequential trader. When it comes to, let me say, protection of human rights, that I can be picked up as a common Ugandan and be abducted for weeks on end and no one knows where I am. Or that I can be on remand for 5 years and no one cares whether I'm dead or alive. The courts that I'm supposed to seek redress to do not care to even give me my day in court. That I'm going to languish there because probably I do not have the resources or the political connections to get myself out of a situation. Or, for example, I go back to the example of a trader, that I am struggling. Perhaps, yes, I read all these books in school. I am an educated person, but I'm not able to get a job. So I start to build my own small business. But the moment I'm trying to get myself off the ground, URA decides that the taxes that I'm paying are not enough. So they tax me some more. 70% of my money is going to URA. But when I want to use this road for transportation, the government cannot be bothered to probably fix this road in Chira, which I use in order to facilitate my business. Or, for example, it cannot put in place mechanisms to create the perfect business environment for me to thrive. But day in and day out, I'm watching foreigners coming into my country, setting up the same businesses, but they get tax reliefs. And me, a Ugandan who was born on this land, is the citizen of this country, cannot get any sort of tax relief, but also is not seeing my taxes being used to provide for me better services. I'm stuck with hospitals that are ill-equipped. I'm stuck with bad roads. I'm stuck with a poor transportation system, public transportation system. I am not enjoying the resources that are constantly exploited from me, including my labor. Everything is taken away from me, including my labor, but there is nothing that I'm gaining for it as a citizen of this country. Instead, I keep on seeing foreigners benefit, a cabal of small people benefit, rich men who have connections to government benefit, and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm saying, the inequality, the injustice, the way the resources are distributed is unfair. And I'm hoping for Uganda whereby there is some sort of justice, there is equality, that all of us can freely move, knowing that we are on the same equal basis and we get to enjoy full rights of a citizen in this country.
Yvonne, how should this country work for everyone and anyone? What are the hows?
I believe, one, for Uganda to work for everyone, we need proper systems and institutions that people can trust. We need institutions where people can still trust and say, for example, if I am going to the Electoral Commission, I know that this system works up to the last dot of how it's supposed to work. We need systems that are transparent, and we need systems that are just. It's very sad that nowadays Ugandans don't have any more trust in systems because they feel they become systems of injustice. They become systems where, corruption is thriving. People are becoming rich at the expense, especially leaders who are meant to be serving people are becoming rich at the expense of the average or ordinary Ugandan who they are meant to serve. But secondly, also, it's very keenly displayed through public service. How do people access amenities? How do they access services that they are meant to access at the end of the day? How is the healthcare in Uganda? Can I go to a hospital and access a medicine? Can I access certain routine procedures without, dying at the veranda of Mulago because I'm trying to give birth? How does education work? Recently, when I was saying, the first lady saying that she wants she telling parents that they should be giving their children milk to be able to study well. How do they afford it? Can majority of the population be able to afford an education where their children can go to school and be able to feed, things like that? How does it work? Marion talked about public transport. How does it work? Do we have one that is effective in Uganda? How many deaths does police report per day that people have died from border accidents? They've died from taxis that are barely operating, but they are on the roads. But drunk drivers who are leaving bars at 3, 4 a.m. and knocking people dead on the roads. How does it function? But also, thirdly, it's in terms of participation. Are Ugandans participating in most of these processes the way they are supposed to participate? If we feel we've given up, say, on elections, because we feel that most of these systems, the way they are working, is not how they are supposed to be, then you've already capped down on how I'm supposed to participate at the end of the day. But also having to deal with a state that is ready to bash down citizens, to release brutality when citizens are trying to participate a way they know how. When we're trying to respect that level of pluralism that comes with a democracy, how are we being viewed as participants, as equal actors in this country? How opposition operates? Are they able to do their work? Or again, they're facing the same kind of challenges because government does not want to be questioned, the ruling parties don't want to be questioned, or the state feels that they have the absolute power to be able to make majority of the decisions. And lastly, I would have to talk about the diaspora. The diaspora also makes part of who Ugandans are, but how come we never ever mention them in terms of how they participate, in terms of how they're accessing services, in terms of how they are operating where they are? Do they contribute to our economies? Do they contribute to Uganda's investments? How do they contribute as people that have left Uganda either to provide labor somewhere else or have families somewhere else, but still want to be recognized as Ugandans? So it's also how we view Ugandans that are not just here in the country, but are also in other regions and countries as well.
There's something you said, Yvonne, about medical access, and I can't help but be triggered, because one of the things we've said a lot in just circles of peers is how we are all one health crisis away from absolute brokenness, or away from a car wash to raise money for this surgery or the other. So that comes up a lot, and I think perhaps that's something we should talk about a little bit more. But let me also welcome our third guest, Honorable Oulanyah. Welcome. I would like to present to you the same question as well. We'd love to hear from you your thoughts about how you think this country can work for the majority as opposed to the few.
We need to check that Andrew has his mic on. Can someone just check?
No, I can actually hear you.
Oh,
okay.
Andrew, it's nice to see you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Fiona, and my fellow panelists.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be here.
Great.
I've been following the discussion, and I would like to just make a small contribution in my own way of thinking. Given this is unfiltered, so we can speak freely. But I know it's all for the good of Uganda. That is all of us.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I would like to make a disclaimer that I am a party candidate, NRM party candidate for Parliament, representing Omoro County. So I might speak from that lens, but I will sanitize it to fit the context of the discussion. Discussions have been had around how Uganda is currently. It's true that a lot has been done, and yet there remains disparities, big gaps between the rich and the poor. For those of us who work in rural communities, you find that a person can survive on 1,000 per day, 1,000 shillings. But now, if such a person has about 10 children, he has to take them to school, they have to go to hospital if they're sick. So such a person, how do we get them out of that kind of mindset? Yes, the government has a role to play, but what do you as an individual have to do as well? Yes, we complain about missing drugs, we complain about the state of our own infrastructure, we complain about the attitude of the people, of the technocrats towards work. But at the end of the day, it is the individual. It is the individual. You as a Ugandan, what are you doing about it? Yes, you've come, you're at the roadside and the policeman asks for a bribe of 10,000. What have you done about it? You have gone to a hospital, been referred to, you've been referred to a private clinic. What have you, as the person working in that system, you're the nurse, you're the doctor. What have you as the individual, Ugandan, what have you done about it? Because I think most times we blame government, yet government is composed of individuals who go back to their homes, to their families. So what are we doing as individuals to actually be responsible? Yes, you complain about, I've had the example of harm. You're complaining about harm. But if you look at the debris, whatever the drainage, you find that it's full of pampers, it's full of rubbish, it's full of caveras. Who drops those caveras in the trenches? And you who have seen me dropping the cavera in the trench, knowing that it's going to affect me upstream or downstream, what have you done about it? You're the same one who is on the roadside throwing littering action on the roadside, knowing there's no one to clean up after your mess. On the roadside, you're driving on a highway and you're throwing peelings on the road, you're throwing caveras on the road. So I think we need to just have a bit of introspection. That as a country, as individuals, as citizens of the country, what are we doing as individuals to actually our own attitudes? For example, if you throw something out of the car and I'm done driving, I'll stop the car and we go and pick it. You is a passive observer. You say, oh, the KCC will clean it up. This one will do it. We don't even have the money to pay all those workers. So we give a lot of work to the so-called government, yet we can also do our own bit. The issue of health, we know what to do, but we don't want to do it. We know that malaria kills, but you don't want to sleep under a mosquito net. The hospitals get burdened because of preventable diseases. You know that 1 in 4 that you're with has possibly HIV and AIDS, but you're still not being responsible for your own life. So I really think as a country, we need to have a bit of a rethink and introspection. We blame government for so much. Government will try to push for free education, where you're going to pay, in some areas, they're paying PT of about 10,000. And people can't afford that. Government is pushing for free education, but the intentions of government are always questioned. And yet it's for the good of those that are in that country. I've also had complaints about benefits to investors. It's true. That is a true thing, that most times we struggle. You start a business today and it's really tough in the private sector. And yet the private sector is the biggest employer. It is on record that the government employs about 400,000 employees only. And that is not even a fraction of how many people graduate every year. So who is going to employ the excess youth? So I think we also need to have a Uganda where we have the interests of the private sector coming also first, because they want to employ these people, of course, without compromising on the rights of the workers. So I think we still have a lot of discussions going on, but I'm happy to join the discussion and also say we can chat a way forward. Thank you.
I wonder, I think Robert might have, he looked like he was going to say something, but if I may just...
No, I was just going to note that where Andrew is sitting doesn't look like a rural area, but anyway, let's let's continue.
I was just
go ahead,
thinking, I was thinking as you were speaking, Honorable Oulanyah, about there's no doubt that what you're saying about the individual's responsibility is important. Each person has a certain role to play in whatever space they occupy. I think however, I also think about the other side, about like the top down, how there are certain things that trickle from leadership. In particular, because you mentioned about like polythene bags and littering, that's an area that I care quite a bit about. And I've often, when I observe, for example, how some of our neighboring countries have implemented the policies around littering, around polythene bags, it appears to me that the enforcement had a lot to do with taking some of these out. Because when I think about people in the markets who are just trying to make money, who are barely thinking about the Kavera and because it's somewhere at the back of their mind. I wonder if it doesn't also make sense if these things are actually enforced. If we don't allow them to use these things, if we don't give them, they don't have to think about it. It's already outlawed. Perhaps there's also something there that we are missing, so that there's something that's trickling from up, If it's already against the law, then there's nothing like we are doing it anyway. Big supermarkets shouldn't even have polythene at this point, So I feel like there's definitely something there. The individual has a responsibility, but I wonder what you think also about that responsibility from up that needs to pour down and enforce in certain places.
My colleague made a comment on the issue of rule of law. There's also the concept of rule by law. So I think Ugandans just try to strike a balance. We're a bit so laissez-faire in terms of enforcement, in terms of implementation. If we're to enforce to the letter, to the dot, it'll be a very oppressive state of affairs. So I think there's need for enforcement. We have among the best policies, the best plans, best everything in Uganda. But in terms of enforcement, I strongly agree with you. There's a gap, and we can do better.
All right, let me hand over to Robert.
So, guys, and again, this is a question to the three of you. So Andrew has introduced. By the way, if you've just joined us and you're listening or you're watching, I would like to reintroduce our panel just so you know who we are talking to. There's Marion Kirabo, who is aspiring to be a councillor at Kampala Capital City Authority. I mean, it's interesting now how young people are interested in what is to be positions of people like my age. Then there's Yvonne Mpambara, who wanted to be president of Uganda. She wasn't going to wait and take the long route that Marion has taken. And then I've got Andrew Oulanyah, who is a flag bearer for the NRM parliamentary seat of Omoro County in northern Uganda. So you get a sense of the young people who we are talking to, and these are people who are way younger than me. And so Andrew talked about individual responsibility. So I want to start with you, Yvonne, then Andrew can come in after you, and then Marion will sort of close it up. At a really, really personal level of you taking the personal responsibility and the personal initiative to go for public office, explain to me why did it occur to you that, you as an individual, you think and felt, say, no, let me go be president. Let me go be MP. Let me go be councillor. What's this driving thing inside of you that you're willing to take on this difficult task? Arduous, almost like climbing a mountain. I know a bit about climbing mountains, so that's why I'm saying, how do you voluntarily take yourself through the kind of experiences that I see politicians taking themselves through?
I have to highlight that there are certain ambitions that can both be personal but also nationalistic. Politics in itself, especially leadership and the kind of governance we have here, is very, very deeply personal. It's personal because when you look at the roads we use, when you look at the hospitals we go to, when you see where we live in terms of the kind of peace either we have or we do not have or lack of, when you see the kind of participation in this country, when you see how we travel, when you see how we use public amenities, when you see how we earn money, you realize that there's so much reflection of what politics does. And it's very important that every single individual at whatever level they are is able to think about their lives being as political as possible. At national level, it's very important to realize the nature of what implementation can do, the nature of what, especially for us that have a centralized system, the kind of resources or the nature of how resources can be distributed, but also how policies shape the kind of citizenry, how they shape the kind of country that we end up with at the end of the day. So it was largely personal, but it was also a nationalistic call. But it's also realizing that at the end of the day, it's not my job to sit on the sidelines and watch. I feel that my generation especially needs to understand how power dynamics work in terms of governance, in terms of what we contribute, what happens when Museveni is no more tomorrow, who is stepping in line. A majority of the times, we always delegate that role to someone else. But then what happens when that other someone doesn't show up? Then who is going to take up that mantle? What happens when Yvonne doesn't understand how power works and she's supposed to be a capable leader, but she's not interested? So we have to be able to take up that mantle and say, listen, it can't be anyone else but myself who has to go and do this job. Secondly, I've gone through certain experiences, for example, that I feel have shaped me running for this political office. In 2016, I just freshly graduated from university, were among the people that were arrested for protesting against the removal of age and term limits. And we had just gone for a simple prayer at, I think it was National Theatre. And I was with this bunch of innocent women, most of them old. And to our surprise, after having gotten a letter of approval from police, we are banded up and thrown on trucks of police and tear gassed. These people had barely even done anything. So we were thrown in jail for literally 24 hours. It's an experience I've now forgotten because I'd said, what kind of leadership would just wake up and say, I'm going to change and rule Uganda for a lifetime? And Ugandans just agreed to it. So I felt I had to fight against that. And so what would happen if a leader like myself was in position to say, listen, we need to be able to respect things like a constitution because it's a social contract that is governing all of us. We're able to live and abide with each other because we have some of these rules that are set in stone for some of us to be able to live with each other, to be able to perform our duties, to be able to lead the country. So what happens when one person, one individual wants to serve their personal interests, wakes up and says, I'm willing to change all that because it serves me, I want to rule for life, so I'm going to do it. So I felt it's my mandate to step up and say, no, this can be the kind of leadership that Uganda should be having. And who else to change it apart from someone with a whole new perspective of what alternative visions for Uganda looks like, but also showing that, listen, there are so many kinds of leaders we have in Uganda that do not have the opportunity because they are denied access to resources, especially women and young people, and yet they are capable of leading. And yet we have this political culture that has showed us that for a leader to be a leader in Uganda, one, you have to have a large basket of resources and money, which majority of Ugandans can't afford even when they are capable leaders. And two, it's a certain level of loud politics. If you're not influential a certain way, Ugandans automatically assume you can't make a good leader. So I felt it's my responsibility to start changing all that leadership does not have one face. It can come through different faces, but also that we have the mandate to provide an alternative vision for Uganda if we feel the one that we have right now is not serving that purpose. I think you're muted, Robert.
Muted, Robert.
Sorry, it shows you how old I am. So we just start talking. So Andrew, over to you. You are from a family with a long political tradition. In fact, for those who may not know, Andrew's dad was Speaker of the Guild at Makerere University, and then he was briefly Speaker of Uganda's Parliament. I was also Speaker of the Guild at Makerere University. Will never be Speaker of Uganda's Parliament. So, over to you. Over to you, Andrew. I mean, at your personal level, what drives you? What do you see as your contribute? Why are you in this? You could just sit in Omoro and enjoy yourself.
Thank you, Robert. As you put it, we have a long history of politics in the family. But ironically, I had no intention of joining politics. Much as I was in questions of leadership from primary school up to university level. But I had no intention of joining elective politics. But in 2022, when my father passed on, the late speaker, Ojok Oulanyah. When he passed on, that's when I saw things pending. And one of the things that was pending was the issue of education, because he had this vision of sponsoring students out of the community to another culture, another environment. And it was very deliberate. Not that because he could have chosen a convenient school in the village and paid for those students for political points, but he picked them from the environment and took them to, let's say, Kampala, to Wakiso, out of the environment. Because the long-term game was to change the mindset, to then bring them back to the community. So that you have a bit of a generation that is more exposed, as opposed to doing the old things the same way. So I saw that as something that was still on the way. Secondly, he had started a project for a radio station. Well, it's called Omoro. I think about 5, and the attempt was to be able to reach out to as many people as possible, try mindset, create a platform through, and now it's up and running. The students being sponsored, some already majority of them were brilliant, and they got government sponsored scholarships, so they're able to proceed even without our support. So that was the initial intention. So that what you had left behind will not just die. Because we have a very bad culture in politics that when you take over power, you try as best as possible to demolish whatever your predecessor did, so that you stamp your authority. And out of obligation, I could not let that happen. So I stood for a position, and luckily, the people, they saw the big picture. Out of 12 candidates, 12 who had aspired for that position, 8 steps down, and we continued with the other 4. And I emerged victorious. So my intention was that is how I joined. Now, when I entered, I saw so many gaps, and it's more around the human capital already. We have this politics where I give you money. It's more like a token kind of politics. I give you money so that you remain a slave to me. I give you money so you depend on me day in, day out. But you don't want to really provide leadership and provide avenues for economic empowerment, for social elevation, so to speak. So I feel we could provide leadership, more leadership, as opposed to politics. And it's what we're offering to do. That's why I came back into this ring of politics. But it's really we're trying to provide leadership, and so we can open the eyes of the people. Yes.
I don't know if we still have Marion. I hope.
Yes, I might.
I was worried. I thought Ham had. Go ahead, Marion. Yes. Marion, are you from a political tradition?
Personally, yes. I think I started politics from a very young age. I would say from my O level. That's when I started to engage in leadership, but it's also a form of politics, I would say. And for me, my motivation has always been the continent. I was perhaps privileged to be in a family where politics was a thing that you talk about. You know, my father was so, how can I say, politically conscious, and he had a huge library of all these political books. So from a very young age, he used to complain that, I'm always reading books too big for my size, I was very little.
Was he talking about you?
Yeah, he was talking about
that you were reading books that were too big.
Yeah, but it was his fault because he had all these political books, and I was always fascinated by, because the books are always talking about Africa as a continent and how far we have come. But the theme was always that the leadership was letting us down. That unlike Asia, that had managed to pull itself from colonialism and, build their countries and have these vibrant economies and, bring their countries into the 21st century as very with very robust economies. For some reason, we had failed to stabilize our politics. We were always plagued by military coups. Our people had remained in poverty. And really, we had become puppets and, exploitation buckets of the West. We have not seemed to pull ourselves out of the curse of colonial rule. And it had a lot to do with our leadership, that constantly we were being betrayed by the people that had sought to liberate us. So as a young person, I grew up with the idea that, bad leadership and governance is the reason, might not be the sole reason, but one of the reasons why as a continent we find ourselves in such a predicament. So I grew up with this urge of, can I be the leader that perhaps one day, I know it's a very big thing and very idealistic, but perhaps be part of a generation of leaders that can pull our countries, our African countries, out of that curse, that we can raise a generation of people who have our continent at heart and are willing to do whatever it takes to also bring, Africa out of that curse of poverty and political instability to an Africa that we can all be proud of. So that is the kind of dream that I had since I was young. It was my motivation to get into every political office that I got into as a way to prepare me for that fulfillment of that dream. Whether it comes true or not, I still have it, so I'm working towards that. Every step that I take is an experience, and I strive to make sure that my leadership means something to the people that I lead, that creates an impact and a legacy, so that when that moment comes, that there's a higher office in which I can do that, I'm prepared. So for me, it's as simple as that. It's really a passion for me, I would say. And yeah.
What's life without dreams? So you had the over to you.
Yeah. I mean, what is life without dreams? I think, Marion, you said a few times that it's idealistic, and I'm sure you hear that a lot. I'm sure you hear those things a lot. I just, maybe it's being young, but I, like you, feel like these things have to start from a dream, at least, at the very least.
It just starts somewhere. Everything was a dream, It's cool. Independence was a dream, yeah. That's a fact.
So I've got this. I've been thinking about this issue for a while now, and it became a bit more urgent. So two things that I find that I've been contemplating about generally the continent of Africa and its politics, but also our region and even closer to home, that a lot of the leaders who have been active in the politics of our country for the last 30, 40 years have really reached the end of their time, or at least approaching. Now, equally, we see an impatience from the younger demographics. The most extreme form is Madagascar, where they overthrew a government, but we've seen violent political protests by young people, Mozambique, Kenya, of all countries. I could never have imagined seeing the scenes that I was looking at in Tanzania. That was really, really shocking for somebody who, like me, has been following the history of these countries. We've seen in another form, the wars that take place in Congo, the terror in West Africa, the Sahel, the wars in Sudan. These are driven by younger people. Then when you look at the other extreme, you see these young people on makeshift boats trying to cross into the Mediterranean to go into Europe. And then here, in our own place, we have these endless trains of girls boarding aeroplanes to go and try and find a future in the Middle East. So the question to you guys is very simple. You understand your young people better than your colleagues. These are your peers better than we do, at least better than I do. Not Fiona, me. Fiona is still part of you. I want you, each one of you, differently. Starting with Andrew, can you articulate? First, forget that you are aspiring for office or whatever it is. Can you, as a young person, articulate for me what are the issues today that a young person is concerned about that they would like to see solved for the future? What are the key drivers of a young person's mind? What are they thinking? What are the things that are running in their minds? What are the real public issues that they would like to see sorted out? So I don't know if my question makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrew, are you there?
Yes, I am. Although I lost at some point. You're discussing the issue of Africa and why the recent surge in uprisings.
Yes.
The example is that if you look at the population, our median age is 17.7 years.
Yes.
In terms of population for Uganda.
I think that's what 75% of Ugandans are below the age of 35.
Sorry, I think I jumped off the network.
Yeah, sorry, there was a bit of a problem with your network, but you're back now. So I was saying, you were mentioning about the median age and the demographics. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so our median age is about 17.7. And then you have over 70% of the people below 30 years. Now we have a generation of people who want accountability, who want opportunities, who want to grow. You have a population that, if you compare to the previous generation, where there was a bit of what they call differential aspect, where you respect authority. Now it's more about accountability. You want quick response for your issues. So we have a youth network that is very connected, very well informed. And then you have some of those who are in power who don't respond as quickly. So we have that gap. The youth want an opportunity. They want to be able to do something with their hands, some gainful employment. They want a decent housing. Right now we have a housing deficit of about 2.4 million. So the issues are few, but fundamental. I want to be able to take care of myself. Yes, I've studied. I've spent 6 years in medical school. I've spent maybe 4 years in technology school or law school, whichever university you've gone to. You've spent over 18 years plus in school. Now, what exactly, where is the gain? You're back home, the best you can do is ride a border because the marketplace is saturated and people are employing their relatives. They're employing those that they know within the circles, nepotism. So I think it's just about opportunities. Yes, I've studied. I want to be able to do something gainful. Where are the opportunities? So I think in the discussion, I hope that we shall have a discussion way forward, proposed way forward, because the challenges are known, and what we the youth want is also clear. We have emerging departments called creatives who thrive on their own intellectual dispensations. So how do we support them? We have a new form of something called gig economy. We have artificial intelligence coming up. What are these emerging opportunities that we can use so that the youth can actually get employment? Because the government, as is, cannot employ all the people that have graduated or have studied. Even those that have not been able to get a formal education, the opportunities for vocational institutions. So I think it's the core issue is around opportunities for the youth, both in leadership and also in growth, in professional growth. Thank you.
Yvonne. What
Well,
what do you understand when you listen to people of your generation? What are their fears? What are their aspirations? What do they look to? What do they want to see? I mean, Andrew has touched some of the issues, especially around opportunity. Yeah.
I'll try and make sure I don't repeat the ones Honorable has talked about. But I think for most young people, it's now looking beyond just survival. And I think Marion had also talked about it at the beginning. It's us looking at what's happening now and realizing that if we probably don't fight for our present, we don't have a future either. We don't have a future either. So if we sit down and see the rates of corruption, we're seeing that public services are a scaffold. We are fighting for our lives. Fiona just said that majority of us are living one small paycheck. Before we are broke, before we actually die because we can't afford to be able to live the average life that someone should be living. So it's young people are just worried about merely living on survival. It's a very hard place to constantly live in, and it's because there's so many circumstances that surround the nature of either their age or the nature of the kind of era we are in, or the nature of governance that we have that does not create a conducive environment for them to be able to thrive, to get those opportunities of employment. Andrew just talked about the emerging economies like gig economies. They are not protected. A majority of policies are not yet recognizing that these are actual emerging economies where a majority of young people are actually employed, but these are young people working without contracts. But also looking at that, what happens to majority that are graduating and still can't access jobs, and yet at the end of the day, they still have to survive? What happens to the ones who are not educated at all, but also still have to find a way to earn a living, and be able to survive just beyond the ordinary one meal, being able to afford the one meal of chikomando or chapati, and also say, I live a life in Uganda that I can enjoy. There's a statement that President Museveni made some time back and said, any fool can live in Uganda and be comfortable. And I found it very disrespectful, because what's the purpose of just living on survival every day when you're just supporting one meal? And yet you don't even know if the next day, if you feel sick from malaria, it's the last time you'll even be able to eat that commando again. Secondly, young people really want to be included. It's why they use majority of their energy. They want to be included in politics. They want to be included in governance. They want to be included in providing services. They want to be included in creating. They want to be included in technology. They want to be created in all spaces. They want to be included in all spaces in whatever capacities they are. This doesn't just stop at young people. How do we view, especially, say, young women? Are they included in all aspects of life? Or we continue to hold on to certain beliefs that, because of their gender or because of their age, this is what they're restricted to. So they want to be included beyond the patronage, they want to be included beyond the tokenism, and they want to make sure they use their energy to be able to participate in all aspects of life and well-being. Thirdly, I feel that there are so many issues that are springing up around technology, especially the kind of technology facilitated violence that seems to be springing up in majority of the communities of young people online. The last time we were having a conversation, we talked about how online, especially social media apps, have become spaces where so many young people have learned to organize, to build their communities, and to be able to, make friends, find lovers, and do so many things, as well as, find jobs and work. And we feel that there are so many aspects of this that are not being able have not been able catered to, because we are slightly lagging behind. For example, Uganda does not have an artificial intelligence policy yet. It's a strategy they've been trying to work on for some time, and they've still not passed it. So when we have leaders like Muhoozi online telling us that he wants to arrest nyashless women, or women he said are bumless, it becomes very scary, because we don't know the nature of what some of these things mean. And it also perpetrates so many other forms of how now audiences start perceiving certain citizens of Uganda. But also, lastly, there are so many issues around mental health for young people that we feel are not being properly addressed. So many young people are depressed because they've been in these states of survival for so long, but also they are unemployed. They're the same young people that are supposed to be the most energetic, but they're not able to put that energy to use because the environment is not conducive enough for them to be able to participate meaningfully and fully to the potential of what they're supposed to. So majority are depressed, majority they feel they've given up on life. They feel there's no purpose of living life. But also there are so many other emerging mental diseases that we feel are not being recognized, and yet they largely contribute towards the well-being of so many young people. So I feel it's an area that also needs to be heavily politicized in terms of how we cater to a majority of young people that are going through mental health issues.
Marion.
Yeah.
I am battling mosquitoes, so unfortunately I can't do what Andrew asked me to do. I can't live under a net while we're podcasting. So go ahead, Marion. I remember in an earlier conversation you explained something to us, which I hope you can touch on in your answer to that question. The struggles of young people trying to make a living in urban centers, but which we don't see because they're battling in small fights with local administrations. How is that an additional layer of things that, can you articulate it for us? Actually, maybe I'm taking your thunder, so you fire away.
Let's repeat that when you said different administrations. Oh, the other, okay, I remember.
No, you were explaining that, a young man, for instance, or a young woman who sets up, for instance, like an umbrella to do mobile money, then has to contend with law enforcement of KCCA, then this, that, the multitude. Just talk to us about that so we can understand exactly how that is an issue for the young people.
I think when we talk about the
in other words, how does it manifest itself for different people? You talked about the mobile money person, but there's also the border guy who is being chased by, I don't know. You tell us, what are those?
I think I'll start with one. For us, most of us young people, as someone was talking about decent housing, I would say what it looks like for us. And I remember when we were having this conversation, we were looking at the fact that the characteristics of these people that are coming out to march and protest, these are young people who are highly educated. And they're from privileged backgrounds, I think we gave an example of in the Kenyan protest, someone was riding a horse. By the time you know how to ride a horse, that's a very rare thing. You must be very privileged. But the person
they were organizing using iPhones. And ordering for food iPhones,
and they have apps that track where people are. So these are sophisticated people, these are privileged people. But the reason why they're on the streets is because they have their 1, 2, 3 degrees, perhaps even a master's from some prestigious university abroad, but they still can't get a job. Or perhaps they still can't get a job that is worth their education. Why? Because the economy is so suffocated. Those opportunities are not there. That you have these 5 people, these 5 boys or these 6 girls cramped up in a 1-bedroom apartment because they cannot afford rent. They have to co-share rent because the cost of rent is too high. They cannot afford that. Whereas their parents at their age were, having a full house with kids and a car. They had finished their education, and probably for them all they needed is that 1 degree. These people have to pile masters upon masters in order just to get a job that can give them the bare minimum of survival, rent and food on the table. So some of them have even resulted to, okay, if I can't get a job, I've been on the street for 6 years, let me go into the boda business. I can mention to you at least 3 people in my friend circle who I know are doing boda business, highly educated. They have degrees from Makerere University. Some of them even have uppers, and we can go into the schematics of Simani, the course and whatnot. But I've also seen doctors who are in the streets languishing because they have failed to get a job, or they have failed to get a a job that can give them a decent living. I mean, we are constantly having protests of doctors going to the street over pay, interns going to the streets, interns working, being exploited for free, only because the government does not have enough money to facilitate their stay, and yet they're dispatching them from different places. But for me, I think a new phenomenon of me has been, as the system becomes, as the dictatorship wants to entrench itself, it has then also created a system of political cabals, let me call it, that in order for you as a young person to survive, especially in these public institutions, you must attach yourself to a certain group of people who power is concentrated. That I have people who have come up to me and be like, you know what, we need to attach ourselves to you and the campaign because we feel that our lives can change due to proximity around you. And you also see it in the national space, people gravitating. Perhaps that is why they become more politically conscious, because people are quickly realizing that if they do not align their politics, that may create the difference between them and the next meal on their table, or between them and the next medical bill. You get? So it's also becoming how can I say, a narrow, how can I put it, that in order for you to participate in this economy, your participation is becoming very political at this point. I mean, perhaps that is why we see the whole Nachivuvo incident, that if you're a trader in Chikuvu and you do not have a directive from the president, your business is gone. But if you're a ham and you have the president in your pocket, you are assured of building 10 or 15 arcades in Kampala. You will control the Kampala economy, while the rest of the fellas who do not have any access to the president are languishing. So I think that is also a new thing that we as young people are discovering. Perhaps that's why we're becoming more, and you'd see us more unpolitically involved, because it has now become survival, and it is only the politics perhaps that can help us survive now. You know, there is that phenomena. You're seeing a lot of crossovers of young people crossing over to NRM. It is not because they believe so much in NRM. No, it is people are looking for survival. People are jumping onto buses to go for rallies because there is food and there is a transport refund. So there is that phenomenon that has also cropped up, and which is a very bad phenomenon, because I mean, the economy is supposed to work for everyone, irrespective of party lines, irrespective of who your father or mother is, or irrespective of who your friends are in your circles, or how politically connected you are. So whereas people think they're entrenching themselves, I think they're creating a very dangerous situation for themselves, that in order for them to survive, they know they must eliminate you, because you are the barrier between them and their next plate of food.
Wow.
Yeah, so for me, that is what I see happening right now.
Fiona, you what do you see? But over to you, Fiona, I guess I've been talking too much.
There's a number of issues that each of you have touched on, and I have no doubt myself and everybody listening there are some that you've spoken on that probably have hit a chord even more than others. Really depends. But I'm curious, because there's so many different issues, and each of you have spoken about different ones, but I can tell even as you're speaking, there are some that speak to you. There are some that are of even deeper concern to you than others. And that can be for a number of reasons, but also we have to acknowledge that no one person comes and fixes everything. So perhaps there's an issue that speaks very loudly to you, and perhaps that's the issue that you think, that's what I want to actually go in there and fix. You know, that if there was something that I was part of fixing, it would be that thing. So it would be great to hear from each of you that thing. Let's say whatever it is, it could be education, it could be, this lack of meaningful participation in governance for youth, it could be housing. What issue is that for you, and what does change look like in whether it's perhaps you have expertise in the area or experience, what does change actually look like in that area and impact? It would be great to know, like, when you see that succeeding as well, what does it become? So maybe I'll take us back around in the order that we've gone in and go to you, Honorable Oulanyah. If there's an area, let me just bring that into one question. If there's one area that you look at and say, that's where I would like to, really take part in significant change, what is that area? What does change look like with you participating as a leader and the impact?
Thank you, Fiona.
Okay.
I made this podcast that I am NRM by clarification, or maybe she could withdraw that statement. Marion claimed that Ham has the president in his pocket. I don't know how true that is, but I think for the benefit of the listeners, there needs to be some clarification there. But to answer your question,
all right. I think we might be losing you, Honorable. Robert, just confirm for me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but I think Honorable's internet is acting up.
Okay. Perhaps as we give him perhaps a few minutes, sometimes technology will just humble you and you don't, so it is okay. I think we'll get him back. Let's give it a moment. But maybe now let me go to you, Yvonne. It is good that you spoke. So let me go to you and ask you the same question. What is that issue, like that one issue that you look at and say, this one I want to be a part of changing it, and what does that change actually look like?
I'll speak to one that I feel largely speaks to me to begin with, especially in terms of the perceptions of how certain citizens of Uganda are perceived just based off gender. And I feel that it's the fact that when I was running and contesting or bidding for the presidency, there were so many questions that attributed certain aspects, not the vision of what I carry, but the fact that, there are those attributes to the fact that I'm a woman. So I feel there's so much work to do in terms of inclusion, especially of women and especially young women. I know that the government here, especially Uganda, boasts of being among the first African countries to be able to firmly start implementing affirmative action. But it's also how now we start to perceive systems of meritocracy on whether they are honest enough to be able to push for the full inclusion of certain categories of citizens like women who are disfranchised from so many things. One, from resources, two, from being able to access certain services, or three, from the fact that just from decades and centuries of being left behind, that they've not been able to catch up with the rest of the population. So it's to make sure that these so-called systems of meritocracy actually display an honest picture in terms of how women are fully included in terms of participation, in terms of access to services, in terms of fully living their lives and meaningfully participating in all aspects of life without being taken back just because they're women. But also, secondly, I'll keep speaking to this because I know majority might not too, especially in terms of what Uganda's stand is when it comes to the region and the world or the global standing as it is. I believe in a Uganda first, but also an Africa forward agenda where Uganda is contributing just beyond security. I know we've done such an amazing work when it comes to exporting security to other countries like Somalia, to Sudan. Of course, I'm not putting in mention what some of the atrocities have been, but what those achievements have been in terms of Uganda contributing security. But to go beyond that, to make sure that it's starting to shape the kind of narrative of its stand on the regional and global aspect to make sure that they can shape what that influence looks like in terms of trade, in terms of investment, but also in terms of their culture, something else aside from security that can, put us on that map and show that Uganda is very serious in terms of influencing the outcomes of global events.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see if we have, all right, let's go to Marion first. Same question, Marion. What's an area that sits on your chest a little heavier than any other that you would like to be a part of the change in? And what does that change look like? I think one of the things I often think about, especially, in a season like this one, when we are making our way towards elections, is it would be great to understand what the leaders like you, like what your strategies are. It would be great to understand some of that. So please share with us a little bit, like almost a Chiriku ground. Like if you were just on the ground, what would that look like?
Bilalamu. Atenga bichuka. Okay, go ahead. I'm just being silly. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Where would I start? I think for me it's two things. I don't know what I should say. It's the politics that then controls the rule of law, or the rule of law controls the politics. But for me, it's really about the politics. It seeps into every aspect of life, whether it is health sector, whether it is the judicial system, whether we are talking about Ham and the Mwala, whether we are talking about the fact that, we have political prisoners that have been in jail for over, it's now coming to, since the last election, it's now coming to 5 years. Or whether we are talking about high taxes and poor service delivery, it's all about the politics. Unless we fix the politics so that we can, it's no longer, how can I say, but even that I wouldn't say it would no longer govern even the most minute part of our existence. But if we do not fix the politics so that we can afford not to think about it, nothing is going to go right. I don't know how we are going to do that, because it is something that has plagued the continent as a whole. I can't say it's something that is plaguing Cameroon right now, something that is plaguing Tanzania right now, something that plagues Kenya, Mali, Burkina Faso. Our democracy, our governance as an African continent is just, I will not curse on this part, but I would use the S word, it's just bad. It's just bad. So everything else comes secondary if we do not fix the politics. Nothing works if we do not fix the politics.
Fiona, I have a follow-up question that I would like to put to the guys after Marion finishes.
Okay, you have my permission.
Yes, thank you.
Good, go ahead.
Marion, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
So you, all of you guys, particularly you and Yvonne, raised this issue, but I want to put it to you directly now so that we can confront it. Sorry, Fiona, it struck me just now. We hadn't prepared for it, but I want to put it to them. So what is the challenge that a person like you, Marion, or, Yvonne alluded to it, but in your different political establishments, or what you went through and what you see other political institutions, how you've seen them behave, what are the challenges of a young person trying to seek public office through the existing institutional processes? What do you guys have to put up with? What do you have to go through just to stand for office? I haven't even said to get into office. I'm saying just the road, the process by which you arrive at being where you are. I think it's called a flag or something like that. What does it take to get
to get the flag?
The flag. I mean, I've seen so many arguments that I don't even know anymore what is what or which is which. Doesn't seem so. But what are those challenges that young people who may want to stand for office? We've got Andrew back. So maybe Andrew first answer Fiona's question, because Fiona had asked, what is that one thing that for you, if you slam dunked it, you would have made a significant impact and achievement? Just before we lost you, you were saying something. Your mic is muted, Andrew.
Old age.
No, that's my territory.
So apologies, I dropped off the call. But I'd basically just want to put it on record that what my colleague had mentioned was a bit off, to insinuate that the head of state is in a private developer's pocket is, I think, a bit off. So a request for the audience. That one I was just mentioning for record purposes.
Sure.
But in terms of opportunities, in terms of what I think we could slam dunk, I think it's how we can use the youthful population as raw material for development. And how would we do that? One, I would like to say Uganda that is technology first. Of course, with people at the center, but the technology first. We have a lot of unnecessary bureaucracy in Uganda, and they're doing a lot of innovations around e-governance. How do we do things online to make government more efficient and more useful to the people? We expect them to be accountability, more transparency. And we shall do a review to see, for example, when the certain system, procurement, corruption has been reduced or not, whether the time has been reduced or not. So there are things that I think could help. Secondly, if you're the sector, I'm deputy chairperson in Parliament, and the web housing and the issue of land types. How do we make the whole process speedy? Is that land information system? How do we make it more efficient? How do we make it intelligent? The contracts that we have smart. How do we all lifeblood of technology is basically an enabler. What is that one thing? What is that one that technology can help us get better at adding jobs? My focus on creating more opportunities through technology. There's so many artificial intelligence empower the youth to create more.
Sorry, we seem to be losing Andrew again. I think we can let Andrew off the hook with his video, if that will allow his sound to be better. Andrew, try doing it without your video, and let's see if that improves your sound.
Okay. Is he still here?
Yeah,
okay.
He's there.
Right.
Okay, I just want to, if you were having trouble hearing Andrew, I'll just say that his point was that, he would want to see greater opportunity created around technology, how that... Yes, Andrew, go on. You if you can do so without your video, let's hear if that will improve your sound.
Okay, so thank you. So saying that across the sectors, all the different sectors of Uganda, but of course we have a challenge in terms of digital infrastructure. How far have we gone to make sure that there's basic connectivity, just 3G, not even 4G, not even 5G, just basic connectivity. Some areas that are still black. up to now.
Mm.
So how do we make sure that, that infrastructure reaches? Yeah. So it's more of, can we set up what are the structure in place to a vice president of Uganda Rugby Union? So I would also look into the aspect of sports, because sports, as the president of Rugby Africa says, is big business. So how do we make sure that, that the youth of Uganda also tap into how can we professionalize the sport, any sport in Uganda? So that is also a form of employment, not just for leisure, not for relaxing or passing time. I feel that in the field of technology, in sports, there are ways we can also have more youth involved in being productive. And the last one I think that would be helpful is that agriculture, as we know it, is also big business if done right. But how do we make them involved in the whole in the value chain? Not necessarily from the farm. Robert, you're a coffee farming, but along the value chain, how do we involve the youth to change that agriculture that yet you can actually earn mint gold from agriculture? So I feel there's some areas that we can focus on, but also as a country, of course, we know that tourism is helping us, but it's a bit scattered. How do we bring everyone as tourism ambassadors? How do we inspire Uganda to sell the country so that we bring business? It speaks to attitude towards the country. If we know that by bringing tourists to Uganda, a tourist, if we were to ask how much does one tourist bring to Uganda, you may fail to calculate. Because from the airport to the accommodation, to the Rolex on the roadside, to Kasava at Kafu, to accommodation in maybe in Gulu, all those people are getting something from that one particular tourist. So how do we make sure that we are all involved in this tourism process? Yeah. So I feel there are many things that we could do, but I would mention those four factors: technology, the agriculture value chain, sports, and tourism. Those are things that I think could actually have a multiplier effect in terms of the reach and breadth. So thank you.
Okay, so I was going to ask this question, so I might as well ask it again. So Andrew, because we're not sure about the stability of you might be in the 3G time. For us, this way we are near a 5G, but you might be in 3G. Let me start with you. The journey to getting, for a young man like you, to be in a political contest, what are the hurdles that you've got to overcome just to be able to contest, and how, at a personal level, how challenging is that journey? And what are the forces, about the freedom and the democracy? You talked about money earlier on, the transactional nature. How does all this stuff affect young people's ability to contest meaningfully for office?
It would still come back to my earlier proposal. How can we use technology to manage so many of these other challenges? Because politics as is now too commercialized. That despite having worked for 5 years very close with the community, we still want that bit of yes, we
Sorry, Andrew, we seem to be losing you. Okay, let's.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, a bit better.
Okay. So yeah. I had mentioned that commercialization of politics has become a big challenge at the moment. And I don't know what kind of reforms we can make. Even if we bring a law now, it may be a bit late. But we could see how to adopt technology and see how we can reach out to people in a more in a more remote way. Because as if you do the calculations now, a member of parliament can spend more than 300 million in a campaign. Where does that money come from? So you have a member of parliament who is indebted, yeah? He goes into parliament indebted and is focused on recovering what he has lost. So it becomes a bit of a chain. It's cyclic in nature. That a person has borrowed money to join politics, he cannot come immediately from politics. So he has to first recover. It takes about 2 to 3 years to recover. By the time he's going back to politics, by the time he's going back to the people, he has to spend much more to cover for the last 3 years.
Wow.
So I think we need to do a bit of a reboot in terms of how we're approaching politics. Yes, the people usually have already made a decision. By the time 2 to 3 months to election, they already made a decision. But you still have to interact more with them. It's really costly. And I feel for my friends from the red corner, the issue of the flag became very controversial. And many have jumped ship. But that is the nature of politics.
Right.
But a lot can still insist that we need to see how to adopt technology. I know in the electoral process, the electoral commission has procured biometric gadgets to help us with the voting. That could, in a way, help us have credibility in the electoral process. But the process leading up to that day is quite expensive at the moment.
Okay. Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Robert. My colleague, Honorable, has talked about the resource part, and maybe what I'll just add is the fact that, you know, for certain categories, especially young people or young women, when it comes to raising the resources to be able to ably compete for some of these electoral positions, it becomes quite hard because there's so many majority of the population would not be willing to make those contributions or the funding because they don't want to on you on the likelihood that you're more likely to lose than maybe other populations that are running, especially for women. They always assume that, you know, even if they could contribute some resources, it's almost a waste because they assume that majority of women usually lose. But I'll go to another point, especially around Uganda's political culture. I feel that we've crammed a certain version of who a leader should be. When you're having those conversations with Ugandans on a daily, they will tell you, but you don't have guns, you've not gone to the bush. How would you expect to, say, for example, run for presidency of this country? Don't you have to fight? Don't you have to have the army in your pocket for you to be able to win? And it's when you realize that, you know, we've programmed our minds to a certain version of what political leadership looks like. When you ask an average Ugandan who they think a leader should be, so many Ugandans will describe for you who Museveni is. They will describe a military man who is a certain age, who is definitely old, and who has probably military influence, and you know, if they're adding extras or adding the kakofida that he usually wears. So I feel that that's the nature of the kind of political culture that so many Ugandans assume actually make a leader. And I hope that slowly by slowly, especially as more young people emerge to take up these positions, that we can slowly change to seeing what alternative leadership looks like, and not just imagine it from the point of view from what 1986 has influenced us to believe. But also it's us believing that, you know, to be able to make a mark on Uganda's politics, that you have to have some sort of influence that is not just leadership, but you have to be loud. I think majority of Ugandans think that every politician has to be loud. And if you're very calm, you're not willing to cause a scene, they will assume you're not a good leader. And I think that is one of the challenges I faced, because they kept asking me, but you don't shout like Bobby Wine. What makes you think that you can actually lead this country? And you have to continually say, listen, sometimes leadership is also calm. It's not just always chaotic, you know. Secondly, I feel there's so much media bias and stereotyping. And of course, when I talk about stereotyping, that will go to a particular problem that is largely faced by women candidates, especially young women. There's so much disrespect, and I think it all stems from some of the systems of oppression, like misogyny, that female candidates face. It was very disheartening to be doing media interviews, and there's a male journalist who is telling you, by the way, you have nice lips and eyes during a major interview. It's very disrespectful. And yet they would never say that to a man. And then, of course, a level of objectification. You can barely sleep because men are calling you at 2 a.m. There are these ones telling you, I want you to give birth to my child if I give you money. There's the other one telling you, oh my God, I will kill myself if you don't marry me. There's so much objectification that happens that we don't usually talk about. And I feel it of course, it ends up affecting some of how people perceive us. Also, the fact that, there's a certain point where someone told me on Twitter that you were sleeping with Kagame and that he has sent you to Uganda to destabilize the government. I wonder how many men would be receiving that kind of insult, being told that you're sleeping with a president to be able to do something else. So it's very, very disheartening, and of course it affects how now the majority of the population starts perceiving your chances of going through or ably competing on the same grounding as the other gender. Of course, in terms of media bias, it's how they report, especially women who are running, concentrating on their appearances instead of the vision they carry for the country or the visions they carry for their constituencies is wrong. And I think that media needs to start slowly redesigning or restructuring how they report, especially female candidates. But also I'll talk to something about political parties in terms of the tokenism that comes with the participation of some of the women in these structures. Most of them are just used as quota fillers, which is not fair, but they do not have actual decision-making power. Recently, I think I put up a TikTok sometime back where I was on KFM and they asked me, what would you do if Bobby Wine called you and he wanted to have a conversation with you about, joining the party as a running mate? And I said, I cannot be a running mate. I would have to leave this party and he can be, my running mate or the vice president of NUP. And I was abused for 2 straight weeks because they said, oh, how dare you? You cannot be someone who leads this country. There's no possibility of a woman ever being president. Why would you even assume it's something that you can talk about? So it shows that, maybe there's a certain intentionality of women not being able to make it up to the top in political parties in terms of being the actual final decision maker or the main decision maker. And lastly, sorry, I'm wrapping so that I don't take up so much time. It's largely around the cultural and society mindset when it comes to certain categories of people running. When it comes to young people and when it comes to women, there's a way the population views you, especially if you're trying to go for certain positions. Now, when women run for non-MP positions that are not meant for women, you hear society asking you, but you have a women's ticket. Why don't you go and run as a woman? Because they assume that now the I don't know what I would call it, the main or the other position that is left is largely for men. It's what they will assume. They'll assume if there's a women's seat, then you can't run for the other seat. And I feel it affects how some of them actually able to compete at the end of the day. But it's also that culture that we believe that, there are categories of, say, Ugandans that they feel cannot either be president or cannot fill certain seats because we've had all these perceptions around what leadership either looks like, or certain gender biases or biases based off age, of assuming that you do not carry enough experience to be able to pull off some of these positions. So I feel that is some of the challenges that we've largely faced.
Marion, you already have the flag, so you don't need to. So what was your experience?
I can retrieve it.
Yeah, well, no, you're there now. So yeah, but that journey to the flag.
Okay. What can I say? But for me, mostly, actually,
I'm really
the challenges
interested.
I have had.
The hurdles that you as a young person have to go through the establishment of whatever kind, because there's always an establishment, there's always a system through which you have to go. How is that for somebody who is young and, is trying to aspire for public office.
Which establishment? The one in the party, or you're talking
Both.
general?
Generally, yeah.
Well, for me, I would say that my battle has mostly been with the EC.
Yeah.
To start off, my constituency was first removed and added to Kawempe.
Mm-hmm.
So my first hurdle in this election was to actually prove that Makerere is a sub-county, and because it's a sub-county within Kawempe, it has special status, of which it's supposed to have a direct seat councillor and a woman councillor. That took me, that demarcation was made in January, and I only got a response in July. So that was my first hurdle. Already I had lost time to even campaign before I even got to start with the flag. When it got to the flag, I was, because I had been fighting and I had let the party know, the party was so supportive in saying, you know what, we can hold on and you know, as you struggle to get this position back, and if you do get it back, you know, we will be there to support you, and we start the process of the card. By the time I reached the card, all my other opponents had gone to other places, and now I was there, which was a good thing, I must say. You know, somehow my hard work paid off, and I hit two birds with one stone, I would say. However, when we now get to the EC, because for me, my constituency is a small constituency of about 14,000 voters. And it's more of a college vote, whereby I have to identify, because Makerere, 4 walls of Makerere, most of the people inside are not really voters. The voters come, work, go back. Or, for example, they were former students and now they are graduated, they have left. Or perhaps they are residents in Wandega and God knows where, and they come and register. Now, up to now, I do not know the exact number of people in the register, which I think is very problematic going into an election and we don't know the number of registered voters. So if by now we don't know the number of registered voters, because even the EC doesn't have those numbers unless they have just recently published them. So who are we campaigning to? For me, it would be my first question. Who am I campaigning to? Who am I sure that this person, that maybe Robert is my voter? Robert may be coming to me and saying he's my voter when he actually isn't. And I spend my resources on him, and it's all in vain. The other example I want to show that for us, young people, really, we have had a tussle out with the EC this electoral season. I want to take you to the youth councillor elections and how they were. I think it was very, how can I say, it was, and I feel like it was a missed opportunity for us in the who do political activism, because how dare you tell me that I registered myself at a certain polling station, and then you woke up as the EC and transferred me to another polling station. And it was done deliberately to deny NUP candidates a chance to participate. You know, so if you are a flag bearer of the party and they know you are flag bearer, they just transfer you, and no one came up to challenge that or to go to court and kind of put an injunction. That whole process was wrong. That was illegal. So for me, my challenges have been with the EC. Now there's a recent policy that came out. We're not supposed to put our posters on trees. We're not supposed to put them on electric poles. We're not supposed to put them in schools, and we're not supposed to put them. I'm asking myself, so where do I put these things? I cannot pay for a billboard. Like let me say, with like MPs and presidents. Like where am I, a person who is fundraising for posters? Where am I supposed to put these banners? And I face a challenge that every day I have to quarrel with security at Makerere for putting down my banners. But because KCCA has a policy out that I cannot put them on trees, I cannot put them on electric poles, like how am I supposed to campaign in such an environment? So for me, my biggest challenge has been the EC. I feel like they have been doing subtle things. Yes, people are saying it has been peaceful, but I feel like the powers that be have been more strategic in creating certain barriers, having the EC, you know, change let me say, dates, for example, because we were the first people to be nominated and somehow we are the last people to campaign. We only have now 2 months because campaign seasons for starting on 10th November for us, local government. But I mean, presidents have been campaigning and they have been campaigning alone. They have been having all these months to campaign, and we only have 2 months to reach out to our people, to have those rallies, to congregate, to have people listen.
You have only 14. You have only 14,000, right?
That's 14,000, man. You will struggle to get them. Like I told you, they are not in one place. They are scattered. You have to move. I think another thing for me, the other two things, but I want to emphasize them. I think Andrew touched on them, and also Yvonne, the issue of resources and the issue of age and gender. I really want to touch on them because that is the most thing. Even when you go into the party politics, even if you go into the national space, the thing that people are reserved about as young people is if we have the capacity to generate the resources to participate effectively, to actually not just be participants and actually be the winners. As I sit before you right now, I need a minimum of 50 million to actually, yes. And that is not giving out, you're not giving out any money. You're just concentrating on publicity, giving out banners, having posters, stickers, reflectors, being visible. You are looking at facilitating your different teams and mobilizers. You're looking at transportation and fuel costs.
I just made a quick calculation. That's 3.5 tons of coffee.
3.5. Are you ready to sell? Are you ready to give me some coffee to sell?
You need 3.5 tons of coffee. That's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yes, and so you see, it's a very difficult thing, especially when you have to go against NRM opponents that one are going to receive nomination fee. I think in the last election they received, at least LC5, they received 5 million just straight from the party. Secondly, they can always lobby. I think in the last election, the NRM opponent in my election spent about 100 million.
Wow.
And that is possible. And that's just for any because, given the nature of what Kampala is, they have to really dish out that money in order to even think about participating effectively, So it's really tough for us young people having to compete against such monies. The cost of elections is expensive, and that's not just exaggerating. And it's not even about giving out money to voters, just running the publicity, getting your name out there, getting your message out there. We're using data, but I have to look for data for about maybe 100 people to make sure that my name sounds in the constituency, that people are talking about me. I have to have meetings, sit down, pay the venue, make sure that I distribute, drinks and, facilitate people to have that meeting. There is so much. I think even without the voter bribery and things, even besides that, just facilitating the campaign alone is a lot. The last thing would be age. I think for age, we are slowly, I think one thing I appreciate about NUP and the People Power movement is changing the perception that people have against young people that you're too young. I saw people in my constituency when they say, hey, you're so young, I'm already short, doesn't help things. So I really look very young. So I always tell them that if you can trust me to be your lawyer or advocate, if you can trust me to be your doctor, why wouldn't you trust me to be a leader in your community? I mean, you trust me with your health already. You trust me with whatever cases that you have. You trust me maybe to be an accountant to handle your money. So why is it so hard for you to imagine me in a leadership position? And I really thank NUP because that is something that they have tried to change in the populace, the perception towards young people. Otherwise, it's a real thing. that you go down, that in the last election we used to go and be like, you're so young, you're not even married. How are you going to solve issues between us married people? How are we going to come and tell you our issues? Things like that. So, of course, about gender, I'm running for a woman position, so gender is not an issue. But for the several other positions that I've run for before, it has been an issue. Unfortunately, even in areas like Makerere, where you would think that people are elites and they are enlightened, gender still comes up. People see a woman and they see a follower, not a leader. But I'm happy that we continue to push back against that narrative, that things are changing, though they are slow, but they are changing progressively. So I would say those are the issues for me that I have faced as a young person in this process.
Fiona, you wind it up now.
Okay. Well, it's been enlightening, and perhaps I'll get into some of the things I've written down a little bit later. But we wanted to bring our conversation at this point to a sort of different segment. But it's still a conversation, but sort of different segment where we'd like you to interact with each other. And when I say you, I mean our guests. So perhaps I'm going to now still hand back over to Robert to do this first question, this first pairing. Okay, let me just make sure you can hear me.
Sorry, okay. Fiona, I missed something because I was just...
No, I was just asking you to do the first pairing of this sort of interaction that we are going to create amongst our guests.
Oh yeah, okay. All right. So so here's what's going to happen. So Andrew, I hope you're still there because I can't see properly. Andrew, you're going to put a question to Yvonne. Any question that you want to ask Yvonne, of course, as a leader, as a youth leader, and Yvonne will answer. Yvonne will ask Marion, and Marion will ask Andrew. I think, Fiona, that's what we wanted to do. And it's a quick question, and the answer must be quick. So, because we don't have a lot of time left to wind this down. So, the first person to ask a question is, so we'll do the questions first, then a quick answer, then the person asks the next question. So the order is Yvonne, Andrew. Did I get it right? Yeah. No. Yvonne, Marion.
Okay, let me Yvonne.
I am not youth anymore.
I've got you, no problem. All right, let's do this, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Let me guide how the questions are going to be. So, Yvonne, this is what I'd like you to picture. You and Honorable Oulanyah are running for the same position. What's one question you'd ask him? So then come up with a question. Are you ready? Go ahead.
Oh,
I want to give you a moment, but you're ready.
I was.
Go ahead.
Oh, I go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. Honorable Oulanyah, I would like to inquire from you if you assume that because your father was a speaker of the Parliament of Uganda, that automatically makes you a capable or potential leader for the people of Omoro.
Honorable Oulanyah, hopefully you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Please go ahead.
And I'll give a long answer, not short.
Is it possible for that long answer to be within just 2 minutes?
That's okay. That's fine. We use 2 minutes.
Okay.
There's Miles Monroe, the late evangelist.
Yeah.
When he passed on, his son came and made a confession, a testimony. And in it, he said he had gone all his life trying not to be like his father. But guess what? He became a pastor. Actually, he would not have his father's name because he didn't want to be asked who even related to the late Miles Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to me, actually, my documents have Ojok Andrew. I wanted to be Ojok Andrew or Ojok Andrew and have my own identity. Now we are here in this mix, Ojok Andrew line, identified by your father.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned earlier that we have gone through leadership positions for a while, from primary head prefect, all those positions you can think of. I've been a leader for all my life. But I had not envisioned entering elective politics, this kind of politics. Because in my mind's eye, I felt if I were competent enough, I need not campaign for myself. People should be able to see I'll be focused on the work. And it's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. I mentioned that I'd gone because it was an obligation. I needed to have something that was pending. And in my opinion, there's no one who could do that without crashing it so they could look superior. So the aspirations that are to a particular cause, but then those that are general in nature, like lobbying for water, for roads, for those are general nature. But the specific aspirations that you believe that only you can carry forward. And that is what I believe a legacy is all about. So I believe in these 3 years, I feel I do much more than I'd actually envisioned to do. It's not about my father. At this stage, the foundation, I'm basically building on that foundation. I'm standing on his shoulder to do something greater, possibly greater than he is. I do not expect to become Speaker of Parliament, but I expect to continue leading in any capacity that is available. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fiona, you know the order of questions, so I'm not coming in.
No worries. Thank you, Honorable. So now let's go to Kirabo. Kirabo, picture this. You're a citizen, you're watching this at home, and maybe you're a young person. And Yvonne is running for president. We are imagining she's on the ballot. What's one question you would ask her?
Mine is going to sound mean.
Ask it.
Why would you participate in an election where you have zero chance of winning?
That's a question. Well, one, there's a certain insinuation. I think you shot 2 bullets in one go.
Okay, I think we have our answer. So
Shot 2 bullets in one go. One, you've insinuated that the current leader is not willing to leave. 2, definitely the question towards me. It's a question I've had several times because, again, I feel that our current leaders have cultivated a culture, a political culture where we've lost trust in some of these systems. We've lost trust in the electoral process. We've lost trust in what elections are meant to achieve. But I went into that race with the same hopes as every other candidate that I'm likely to win it. And I was putting in all the effort to make sure that, I stand the chances to win it as much as possible. But I'm very, very intrigued that you've asked that question because you have somehow indirectly stated that, we are fighting a system that is not willing to let citizens participate to the best of their ability because they are serving personal interests.
Okay. Now, Honorable Oulanyah, so if you were covering this conversation as a journalist, not a participant as you are now, what would you ask Ms. Kirabo to clarify or defend? It's interesting. I wrote this before all this, so I don't know how this has happened. Here we are. Here we are.
Will ask me about putting I'm having 7 in his pocket.
Let's allow him to ask the question, please.
I think mine will be more of a compliment to the team, especially Marion, youthful and brilliant.
Thank
Youthful
you.
and brilliant. So how do you intend to navigate this particular? If you had a chance, how would you undo the commercialization of politics? What is your vision of of a transparent process? How would you undo this kind of damage of commercialized politics?
I think the first thing I would do is one, especially when it comes to MPs and the presidential elections, lower the nomination fee. Because really 20 million to run for president, I don't think it's feasible. For what? Secondly, MPs, why? Why would you need 3M to run for MP? The second thing I would do is I would actually, especially for the MP seats, the salaries that they are paid. Part of the reason why we have so much money being invested in our politics is because people think that there's a lot of money to be made, that they are going to recoup those resources once they get into power. So the first thing would be reducing those so-called allowances and salaries. Why? I think last time I checked, an MP has been paying 20 million. If correct me if I am wrong, around 20 million. That's too much money. Why? And the doctor is getting paid.
Let me correct you there. There's that assumption that MPs get a very high salary. And MPs gross salary is 11 point something million. The net is 5.5 million. What varies is the allowances. Because a person in Kampala travels a shorter distance, a person in West Nile travels a much longer distance. I'm going to admit that the allowances vary because of distance. And possibly if you have a tarmac road, the competition is different. If you're on a Maram road, it's different. So there's some other factors that make it a bit different. But for the record, MPs earn a net of 5.5 million. It can be fact-checked.
But we all know that once those allowances are put together, that money accumulates and becomes around 20. At least I remember reading a certain report that was to that effect, around 20 M. So even still, we cannot deny the fact that you will still be able to recuperate some of the money. Of course, there are issues to do with people come in and they have eaten a lot of loans and whatnot, but if you haven't, you will be able to get that money back. Not to mention the different, let me say, projects and flights and whatever you put in. So the truth is that politics is profitable for some individuals, and we cannot take that away. Perhaps that is also adding to the issue of the commercialization. The second thing I think is that if it comes to the issue of voter bribery and so on and so forth, I'll speak from the experiences that I've had, at least on ground when I've been going on the campaign trail. The reason why people ask for a councillor and GMO, for me, I want you pay for my vote today, because I know I will not see you tomorrow. I think one of the things is that when you already have a corrupt form of governance and the people have lost faith in it, the only way to have some kind of accountability per se, although accountability is not the right word to say, but the only way to get some relative, let me say, profit or benefit from this leadership, for most of the people, what's going through their minds is that I can only get this person during this campaign season. After this campaign season, I will not see them. So if I do not squeeze them now, when I still have access to them, I will not see them again. So especially for the incumbents, that the person has been an incumbent, you gave him the vote the first time, and for 5 years, they have done nothing. So when they come back, the mentality of the people is that now you must buy my vote. Because the first time I allowed you to go, perhaps I didn't ask you for much, but you made a lot of promises and you did not fulfill them. And now this is my chance to get whatever I can get from you. So the issue of bad governance also comes in that because they know they cannot get any social services from you, they know they cannot get any benefit from actually going and casting their vote, and they cannot hold you accountable. They can't even recall you if you have refused to deliver. The campaign time is the only time they can actually ask for accountability. But the third thing is that, of course, when you have a dictatorship in power, it trickles down to also the other sports. Because when you have a president who wants to maintain his power, the only way he can maintain his power is if he captures certain arms of government, including parliament. So he must invest aggressively, not only in his presidency, but in other positions in order for him to maintain this superstructure that he has built to maintain himself in power. So it will look like he needs to invest in the military. That where, let me say, in those faraway places where there are not many eyes, unlike the urban areas, those faraway places whereby, and we saw what happened in last election, where I think we saw videos of actually military people casting their vote. We saw people being disorganized and chased away in the last election of Nalukola in Kawempe South, where security came and kicked away ballot boxes in order to try to rig the election in favor of the NRM candidate. So you try to make sure that apart from your presidential seat, that you're getting as many MPs as you can, so that you co-opt this parliament. So that looks like investing a lot in security. So therefore, you need money during the campaign season. You're releasing money to security. You're releasing money to the Electoral Commission to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do. You're also releasing money to these candidates to make sure that they participate effectively.
Marion, our 2 minutes.
And move over. So, just to wind up, I think those are the three reasons I would give for the commercialization of politics. So you fix the governance, you lower the cost in terms of things like nomination fee and all that, but also you make sure that our leaders are doing the right thing. They are delivering to their people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys, Marion Kirabo, Yvonne Mpambara, Andrew Ojok Oulanyah, for joining the very first inaugural podcast called The New Breeds, where we, Fiona, you're the one who knows that phrase. Fiona, your mic is muted.
Yes,
Fiona,
yes. The New Breed podcast, where we bring you the next generation of leaders unfiltered. And I think that's precisely
so Fiona, what should our followers do?
What should our followers do? Well, first off, if you have a comment, I've seen a couple already popping up on our YouTube. Of course, we won't address them here, but we'll find like a different way to have sort of like a post where maybe if there are questions directed at our guests, we can reach out to them to answer some of them. So feel free to comment on the YouTube specifically. That's where we can draw some of your thoughts and comments and so on and so forth. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can receive the notifications every time we have this program, which is going to be every Monday all the way into December of this year. So right. That is what we request you to do so that you can stay on the pulse of these conversations.
So thank you very much, Fiona. You've shown that you've taken over, so you're now in charge. And for me, it's just a good night to all those who have listened. And to all those who have watched, please spread the word about these conversations, that this is where it all happens. So thank you very much. And it's a good night from us at The New Breed.